I'm sitting across a man at the table in my office. Ankit has been coming to me for 4 months now, and we're on a mission to get him to the next promotion. When it comes to his job responsibilities, they're in place for sure. In fact, his manager is waiting for him to replace her. There's only one thing missing. That thing that we call leadership presence. The ability to own the room and speak so people listen. Today, we're working on expression and how to show our emotions and how we feel and what we mean. We're diving into an exercise, and I ask Ankit, please suggest a speaking topic for me and choose among these different emotions on the list. He picks having a global life, and the first emotion is happiness. Oh, with a global life, you have home bases all around the world, and you have close relationships and belonging in so many places. The next feeling is frustration, and I go on. The admin that comes with moving to a new country is exhausting. And sometimes I just hate that my special ones are so far away. And then it's Ankit's turn. As he's talking through the different emotions, it becomes clear to both of us that he sounds and looks the same. What's happening? It seems as if you're connecting with your feelings up here in the chest and not going deeper. Together, we discover that although the feelings change, Ankit cannot really access them. I ask how it was for him to express himself when he was young. When I grew up, it was all about getting 100 of 100 points on the tests. What I was feeling had the least relevance. Ankit learned how to push uncomfortable parts of himself away to excel in his career. And it got him all this way to a senior position in one of the largest multinationals in the world. Until this moment, when this is what stands between him and the next level. The first thing I do to support Ankit is awareness. Knowing where we want to go, being aware of what's happening in the moment. I have a whole toolbox to draw upon that helps professionals build presence and build influence in high-stakes moments. The most obvious part is the right and allowed on the outside, with tools like the power of the voice, building relationships and networking, and how to influence through stories. To build these skills, we also need what I call the right and allowed on the inside. That's all about handling nerves, confidence, and opening up those hidden chambers inside so we become whole. There's all these reasons as of why we push parts of ourselves away. Some of it comes from gender roles. Little boys get to hear that boys don't cry. And for men, the whole field of being confused or asking for help is a no-go. And by the time little girls have become professional women, there's often a fear of being too emotional, or more precisely, of being accused of being too emotional. And there's more. There's also socioeconomical and cultural things. So when I grew up in the small welfare states of Norway and Sweden, the values my parents passed on to me was all about finding your passion. When we grew up in Asia, for example, with huge populations and fierce competition, there's less consideration for emotional needs. But the movies are all about the big feelings. So why is it important for leaders to have the right and allowed on the inside and access their whole selves? Well, we won't become a leader without self-expression. Leadership is autobiographical. If I don't know who you are as a person, I don't know who you are as a leader. We need to feel our leaders. And having leadership presence is difficult without access to our whole self. I call it being comfortable in our own skin. And at work, we have hierarchies and different access to power depending on our skin color, our gender, and our title. And often we internalize these things, so it becomes like an extra hurdle that we have to jump over to access our personal power. But more than anything, to lead others, we need to have empathy, so we understand the people around us. And to have empathy with others, we need to have empathy with ourselves first. We need to be with what is. And when something is uncomfortable, it is hard to be with what is. When we are triggered, our impulse is to push away the discomfort somewhere down here. And when I do this, there's two things happening. The trigger is physical, it becomes part of my body, so it takes a lot of energy to keep it down. And while I'm doing this, I'm losing focus on the conversation up here. Maybe something happens that will resolve my trigger, or maybe something that's more relevant. But I'm not noticing because I need to keep all these parts of myself away. And anything that is kept away starts brewing. It becomes almost like a pressure cooker waiting for a moment to get out. And that's often what happens, that these part of myself I'm not accepting, they lash out like a scorpion tail. It can be in the tone of my voice that becomes harsh and hurtful. Or maybe words come out of my mouth that really were not intended for anyone else to hear. The approach that works is to make ourselves big. Not only as a metaphor, but viscerally, physically, expand and make my stomach big. By doing that, I'm creating space for the trigger. I can't believe he said that, that's so annoying. And by having that space, I also create space for my wise voice to emerge. That's the voice that knows what to do. Now, putting this into practice is not easy for any of us. On my own journey, I learned that even when it's uncomfortable, there is no way around. And I learned to trust my intuition. So when the signs were showing me to go to my father's birth town and explore the routes that I'd never known, I wrapped up a successful chapter in Dubai and moved to London. Not doubting, of course, that things would unfold. What I encountered was resistance. Then came a pandemic, and I got long COVID too. I was staying afloat with work online and Dubai clients in between. And despite it all, I was determined to make it happen, so I kept at it. On one of my visits over here, after a lovely week of reunions and sessions, I sat down with my friend Irini to have a catch-up in Achilmo. So, how's London going? And the floodgates just opened. It's not working. I'm such a failure. Irini did what she could to comfort me, but all I could hear was my monster of failure. We wrapped up. I needed to buy a new outfit, so I stumbled into the mall, all blurry and teary-eyed. Suddenly, my gut brain spoke. You can't buy anything extra. There's going to be lots of suitcases. What? I couldn't believe it. I just brought my last possessions back to London. Even in a state of shock, I knew instantly what this meant. There was a new move on the horizon. I kept surfing between the shops and trying to get clarity. In my inner mind, I could see the frame of a doorway, but in the middle was the monster of failure, blocking everything. I wanted to run away, but the only way forward was to accept that failure first. Sometimes, by going into the shadow, that is where we find the hidden treasures. And somewhere between the shops, I had the impulse that maybe I should go to the beach and get more clarity under the open sky. I sat down in the sand and breathed in the beautiful view I was watching. Big, open, wide. And the hidden treasure came to me as a sentence in my head. If everything is just the way it's supposed to be, what is there? Oh, it was hot and humid, so there was a sweaty me. And there was a knowing. I was ready. Now, if I wouldn't have looked my monster of failure in the eye, I would have been stuck. To get through the doorway, I had to make myself bigger and include my shadow. Only then could my wise voice speak to me. Now, of course, when we are in pain, we don't like it. So we judge the pain. And then we judge ourselves for having the pain. But it's only when we get let go of the judgment that we can move up close and release. And often we are unaware. Like Joanne, who reached out to have voice sessions. She was fairly comfortable, but she didn't like the sound of her voice, and she was concerned about how people were perceiving her. And it is true. The way we relate to our voice very often relates to how we enter the room, how we show up, and our ability to speak up. And working with the voice is very sensitive because it is such an intimate part of who we are. We started working with vocal exercises. But from the first time we spoke, I noticed there's something else going on. Between the words, I could hear that she was overthinking and doubting herself. So this was a moment for the right kind of loud on the inside as well. I took out some tools from the toolbox and we started applying them. And as we progressed, Joanne had less doubt and judgment of herself, and she became more comfortable in her own skin. Of course, this made her a better leader as well. After 4 sessions, I got an email. Joanne was promoted. Now, shifting from avoiding to welcoming is available for all of us. So the next time discomfort arises, I invite you to notice that physical trigger. Make yourself big and allow for your wise voice to emerge. Your wise voice is waiting for you to embrace your shadow so that you can lead the way only you can.